Have you ever wanted to draw something better than just stick figures and box houses? You would think that by now we'd be better at drawing than our second grade selves. Yet sometimes you're faced with a school project or a game that requires a quick sketch, and it can baffle you how unlike your picture is from the real thing. I'm here to tell you that it's not a lost cause. As an illustration student here at Taylor, I also had to learn these basic steps. Now I can share with you how I learned to draw using a new understanding of basic space and shape. Victoria Vebell sums it up perfectly in her 2015 book, Exploring the Basics of Drawing, in saying, the first step in drawing realistically is to learn to see. All you need to grasp are these two simple ideas. The way you see the world can be broken down into flat, two-dimensional space, and by adjusting the way you perceive, you can translate those basic shapes onto paper in more realistic forms. Think of any object around you, say your computer. You can already see that it's made mostly up of rectangles. And think about your water bottle. That's mostly circles. You know that already, and you could probably draw those objects based on those shapes alone. The key difference is perspective. When a rectangle or a circle is viewed at a different angle in the three-dimensional world, they turn into completely different two-dimensional shapes. Usually, circles become ovals, rectangles can turn into squares or trapezoids or rhombuses. For example, take a look at these two images from Brian Curtis's 2009 book, Drawing from Observation. Consider the opening of a mug. Look at the shape of the mouth. You know it's a circle opening, but what do you see? You see an oval. Let's look at another example of how perspective affects shape. You've all seen this picture, right? The railroad track that disappears on the horizon. Sure, you know it's a rectangular shape that goes on for miles, but when you look down the track, it becomes smaller and smaller until it disappears from view. If you were to draw it, you could start at that point on the horizon and go down one side, then say across the middle, then back up to the top. What shape have you made? A triangle, not a rectangle. Okay, that seems pretty easy, right? Let's add something else. Not only is an object made of shapes, but so is the space around it. In a 2005 article by Washington State University professor Florence G. Feasley, he explains that the white space around a paragraph has shape, just like a paragraph itself. The same thing applies to drawing. Think of a kitchen chair. You know, the ones with the bars across the back? Here's a visual from the Visual Instructor, a website created by Matt Fusel, an artist and educator since before 2006. The space between each of those bars and the legs of the chair can itself be drawn to build your object. It's called drawing both positive and negative shape. The object is the positive shape, and the space around and within is the negative shape. Both are very important. Deborah Rockman points out in her book on composition, line, and line variation, would a cup still be a cup without the negative or empty space inside of it? That's why we draw the space between the bars in the chair, as well as the bars themselves. Once you are comfortable defining space and 3D objects as 2D shapes, you can start breaking down more complicated shapes into simple shapes. Like in algebra, when you needed to find the area of a complicated house layout and you broke it down. Exploring that more, as well as value and tone, is for another time, but follows the same principle. If you want to know more, please stop and ask me. I would love to talk more in depth about it than just the 5 minutes. But now it's time for you to take this to the drawing board. Go and test this out in the real world. The next time you're playing Pictionary or drawing for a class assignment or just doodling in the margins, you can practice breaking down what you are seeing into simple shapes, putting them together to form a more realistic object. You now know how to view your 3D world differently and identify shapes and the spaces around them based on the perspective you are viewing them in, rather than your conceptual understanding of them. as backwards as it seems, draw what you see, not what you know. Simple as that.